And I wanted, as dark as this sounds, I wanted to witness the collapse. Like,
Very
as
interesting.
dark
Yeah,
as it sounds, this is a historical moment. This is something that
agreed.
not many people get to experience. I like to learn about things. I'm interested about business. I'm interested in economy. Like I'm a curious person. I wanted to live this.
Welcome everyone. This is Arfat from Starpath Academy. We are back with Ali from Lebanon. We had an amazing interview with him where he was sharing the life in hyperinflation Lebanon and what that means for the average person. Ali, we were talking about off air about the emotional issues that people go through in economic collapse, hyperinflation. Do you think you could share with the viewers something that is, how hyperinflation and economic calamities affect the people and their emotional level?
Definitely. So I'm someone who is very interested in mental health, and I do take care of my mental health, and I'm conscious about how things affect my mental health. Um, and uh, I can see what's normal and what's not normal. And that helps me a lot. But you do see during those crises a lot of mental and emotional issues that start arising that are even much deeper than just, the simple anxiety, like, do I have enough money to buy food this month? And I'm someone who lives alone. Like, I even have the least to worry about. Um, Sometimes I think about the parents who are not able to provide for their children. How do they feel about that? They could, I mean, I've seen people be really, really sad. They definitely don't show that to their children, but when I talk to them, you see people who are depressed because they're no longer able to be to provide their children what they, and we're not talking about poor or underprivileged people, because hyperinflation affects everyone. Um, and the anxiety in itself of things unknown, the more unknowns, the more anxiety you have, the more uncertain you are about anything, the more every decision becomes much harder to take. As simple as, like, if I'm gonna take a meeting with you, what time? Like, that alone is a big decision, because I need to take into consideration different things. Even electricity, will it be there or will it not be there? Sometimes we have a pattern, but that's also not guaranteed. So that simple decision is so hard. So imagine, like, how dealing with bigger decisions on how to spend your money, where to spend your money, uh, trying to find job, having family around you, and you're trying to take care of them. Not knowing if you will be able, like, I don't know if I get sick today, like, I don't know if I get today, if I will be able to go into a hospital. I cannot guarantee that, because a lot of hospitals are closing, and that I want to get into that specifically. I'm just talking about the emotional toll on all of these. Like, they're all constantly on your head. And when the moment I felt it the most is when we started getting long blackouts. I mean, thankfully, I mean, I work, I have a job. I'm an entrepreneur. I know how to generate income. And I do consider myself coming from a place of privilege. Not privilege in the sense of being rich. I'm not rich. My family is not rich. Privilege in the sense that I know my way around things, and I'm not really marginalized or poor. And I still find myself unable to do things that I always wanted to do, or I always did. things as simple as work. And when you reach a place where even money no longer solves your problem, and that's where you get to the breaking point. Because, and that was my theory, that we will only start seeing change when middle to upper class can no longer solve their problems with money, or it's very inconvenient for them. Like, if you want this medicine, it doesn't matter if you have $1 million, it just does not exist
Right.
on the Lebanese soil. Okay, you can pay to get it from wherever, but that takes time. The same thing with everything. And you get to a place where even money does not solve your problems. Like, there's no electricity. Like,
it's a systemic
so in
problem,
Lebanon,
and
we
no
always
matter,
work.
right.
So in Lebanon, electricity is, we have the main grid that's provided by the government, but the grid does not provide 24 hours. So we have private electricity generators, and that's how it's always been. So we pay two bills, and the private electricity generators, they back up. But that's it. Those are designed to back up. They're not designed to run instead of the government. So we got to a point where they also need breaks. So they're no longer even able to, and that was still when they were able to buy diesel. Right now, not only they need brakes, they're also unable to buy diesel because diesel simply does not exist, or you need to have access to black markets. And you got to a place where you even need access to the black market. Like, you need a connection for someone to accept selling you something that is 10 times overpriced.
Right.
It's not shady. It's just like he would only give it to people he likes. So nothing's shady. It's public, but you need to know someone. Like, even black market, you would need to know someone to get access to those things. And when I started, I had days without electricity. The physical toll that like, it's hot. It's really hard just going through the day, especially at first when we also did not know when the electricity is coming back. Because as I was trying to say, the more stability or stable things, the better your mental state. But when nothing is stable, like, you really don't know, for the first 2-3 days of extreme blackouts, we would not know when the electricity, it sometimes would come for an hour and then disappear. You could not plan for anything. You did not know. Like, sometimes I would rather know because I could probably go up the mountains and the weather is better and I can stay at the hotel. But then I start thinking, what if I leave and then electricity comes back in 10 minutes, which is a scenario. So all this ambiguity, combined with the physical draining of heat and sweating and not being able to entertain yourself with anything, neither work nor entertainment. That was the time where I decided that I cannot do this. I need to start looking for neighboring countries where I can temporarily relocate. Because up until that time, I was able to solve my problems with money. And I wanted, as dark as this sounds, I wanted to witness the collapse. Like, as dark as it sounds, this is a historical moment. This is something that not many people get to experience. I like to learn about things. I'm interested about business. I'm interested in economy. Like, I'm a curious person. I wanted to live this. At first, I started researching running a business in hyperinflation. I did not find any literature on that because it's not something that exists normally. So I wanted to live this, again, from a very privileged place. I was actually grateful that I get to live this. But when electricity started not existing in my life anymore, number one, you realize how our life today is nothing without electricity.
Dependent, absolutely dependent. Our modern life.
It's nothing. Like, our life are designed around electricity. I lived with the Amish for a couple of weeks when I was in the USA, and I started reflecting back on that. And I was just the contrast was striking. Like to them, they have a totally normal life for the rest of their life without electricity, while to me, a day without electricity is basically a negative. Like it hurts me more than, like it's not even a neutral day. It's like, it's hurtful. You see how much we rely on electricity, and then add gas to that. Like if we don't have gas and electricity, which is the case in Lebanon, like coma. Like it's a social coma.
Societal coma, absolutely.
Like it's a
So
coma.
I
You
want
cannot, if you
the
have no gas, you have no electricity,
I want the
you're
viewers to
dead. Like there's nothing
understand
to do.
I want the viewers to understand the emotional toll that this takes on people, the uncertainties that are there, the economic uncertainties, medication, food wise, thinking about without electricity, thinking about your freezer, what happens with that. And then on top
Exactly.
of that, if you're a parent or if you're having a family, you have small children, how would you fare with that? What
Exactly.
extra pressure that builds upon you
Or
that
if you have
it's
older
not just
parents, I
you
mean,
but
no one is spared.
caring
Like
for others no longer there. Yeah.
I'm lucky that my parents live in Dubai, because if they were living here, I would have been very concerned about their health. Any simple procedure today, uh, hospitals are closed because there's no diesel or there's no medical supplies. So to imagine being so worried about your family, whether your kids, whether it's your parents, anyone that you care for. I mean, it's something that you even feel with your friends. 80% of my friends left Lebanon in the last 2 years. And already Lebanon has a culture of immigration, and
Leaving, yeah.
that's already a given. In Lebanon, when someone graduates, the question is, so where are you going to travel? So, that's part of our culture. But then you saw the extreme aspects of it in the last year, especially with people who don't have families and who can relocate easily. We can get into several countries without visas as of now. I don't know how long would that last. So I know many friends who just, grab the backpack, their laptop, and they move to Turkey. Turkey is the closest, cheap, relatively cheap compared to the value of money. We don't need a visa to go there. So I'm losing a lot of friends to just leaving, either getting jobs or temporarily relocating. Uh, Again, the only emotional, social support that you have also no longer exists. Not only you're facing those troubles, but the places that you used to let go no longer exist. Your friends are not there anymore. The social life is not as similar anymore. You cannot go. We don't just go hang out. Like, hey, where's dinner today? The social life doesn't exist anymore in that sense. So all those combined together make it really hard to go through this. It's really, and I have many friends who work in the fields of psychology and psychiatry, and they tell me that they're getting a lot of new patients. A lot of their old patients are having, relapses, and it's just getting much harder um, to help people go through this. Um,
It will
Anxiety and depression medications were some of the first to disappear from pharmacies. Uh,
this will take a toll on the country and on the society that will echo for who knows, 30,
exactly,
40 years, you know
because exactly when
um
you're not when you're not motivated because you don't have a job, you no longer have the it's a cycle, right? So you no longer have the motivation to try to make something good. So it's very draining, and I really would like to encourage anyone passing through anything similar, whether through um, because they're passing through a crisis, or whether because it's a personal crisis, to just have hope that what you're feeling is valid, but um, don't give up. I mean, as cliche as that sounds, because if you give up, it's just going to keep cycling down, and um, there's nothing that you'd be able to do eventually.
Yes, unfortunate.
The
And what
rate
I
of
found,
suicide has increased. The rate of
absolutely,
suicide.
I wonder, yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably the worst aspect of this, that people give up and take their own lives under these situations. What I've even experienced through being a young person when it happened to our country, that this gets carried on. This gets carried on. My parents had certain habits form because they
Of
went
course.
through this. Then I have similar habits, and knowingly or unknowingly, I'm giving habits down to my children. Many other things. My mother had, after going something like this, through this, my mother had trouble throwing away used paper or
Mm-hmm.
plates or
Exactly.
one, reusable cups, because that psychology that builds around that to survive, is built in now into your system, and is through generation it will get passed
Exactly. And I mean,
down.
you can see that with the generation of my parents. You can see habits that have existed that have also been passed to me. Lebanese people save money, not, in the States, the savings account are usually promoted as island and
Right.
retirement. So in the States or in Europe or in any country where your basic needs are met for granted, savings are usually for leisure, right? So
Hmm.
they always sell
For
you
the good
savings.
life
Hey, you want to go
after
on a
retirement,
vacation?
right?
You want to go on a retirement? You want to go on a vacation? You want to buy your car? You want to buy your yacht? That's what savings are for. In Lebanon, everyone saves, but we save for our children that we might not even be married yet.
Right.
We save for the education of our of our children. We save because what if I had to go to a hospital, because we also don't have a reliable medical insurance system. We literally, so that's when you go to the banks, when they advertise the savings account, they don't show you an island, they show you a child with a graduation hat because it's a whole culture, a different perspective, the way the culture sees things. Here, I need to worry about my children learning, because if I don't have money, they will not learn, period. Um, so we have different sort of worries, and that's how you see the effects of these things and how they affect the culture and the generations to come. I
Very
can
well
already
put.
see how this generation is growing to be very skeptical of the banking system, you know?
And they have a good reason to, of course. And regarding, saving for your children, isn't that true? Many Eastern European countries, or countries who went through some of these
Exactly. It's
calamities,
also part of the culture.
it became that, well, it's almost inevitable that you will just have to live your life like this, but hopefully you can save your children or your grandchildren from that pain that you are going through
Exactly.
right now. And my parents had trouble spending. Eventually, when they made some money and the economic situation got much better, they just didn't want to go on vacations because they felt they don't deserve it, or they felt that it's a waste of money, because the
Exactly.
all everything needs to be concentrated on the continuation of having whatever little good we have now, to make sure we don't lose it, which is a mental strain on people,
And
especially
that's
the older
exactly the
generation.
same with my parents. So I think our parents have passed through the same, you know, context, because the same thing with my parents. My dad was a poor guy in Lebanon in the Civil War. And what he tries today to do, I mean, until today, is to not have us pass through that. And he did a really good job. But right now, we, his children, or him and my mom, like we try to like push them to have fun, because they
Yes, it
did
was.
not do that. Like for the first, my family, my dad learned in Germany. So we have traveled. Some people have never traveled. My parents, a lot of my family live in Dubai. We speak multiple languages and all that. And until probably 10 years ago, my parents has never visited like another country, like other than
Right.
the countries where they live. They never experienced what it is to be a tourist. They never, and we pushed them to do that, and now they're doing it. Like, because they need that. It's as you said, because as parents, you feel a lot of guilt. Like, do I really want to spend like $5,000 on a vacation, or do I want to save that to teach my child? And
Yes, very well put. That's what I saw in my parents, but you know, it got inherited into me. Sometimes I feel bad taking a few days off from work because like I feel like wasted time if I just go out in the sun and do something. So it feels to me that everything needs to be concentrated, everything to save
exactly,
that little thing. And
and
now
it
I'm
takes you a
trying
lot of self-work.
actively to break out of this because it
Exactly.
actually you need to focus on breaking out of this mentality that you inherited the the sort of the lack, the mentality of
The
lacking, the
survival, you live on a
survival. Yes.
survival mode.
I mean, fortunately, in these situations that, you know, our sense of survival is much higher than the average American or Western European, but also it limits us because we're afraid to do certain investments. We're afraid to do things that would push us forward. So I had to unlearn many of that thing or have that still there in the back pocket, but also to learn in a society that is thriving, which was very hard. And for our American viewers, you can think about, you know, your grandparents or your parents, maybe if you're older generation, that whoever went through the you know, the depression period, you know, that you can imagine that those patterns, what they inherited, what they learned, how it gets passed down, and then after a couple of generations these bad habits are lost, but also the knowledge is lost, right? And that's the sad part, that we don't bring these lessons that we have learned. So
And sometimes this creates a clash between you and your parents. Sometimes
yeah, of course.
they think you're being too, crazy. You're spending your money. You're not planning for your future because they're trying to fit you into their fears, into what they. I mean, I just a few days ago I had a small argument with my aunt because I told her, like, I know that my uncle has two children and they're probably like struggling financially with school. And I told her, I'm earning in dollars. I'm making good money. I know my uncle will not like it. So if there's any way I can pass on some help, just let me know. And, she being my aunt would tell me things that describe exactly what you're saying. I'm almost 40 years old. Like, I'm 36. And she tells me, no, no, you also have your future. And to me, like, I told her, like, when is my future? I'm like almost 40. And I'm trying to help those children. And you're still concerned about my future. It shows you how engraved in their heads that you need to always be worried about your future. And it's something that, like, she doesn't know like how much savings I have or whatever. It still is a main concern. Um, and it was ironic to me when, someone like who's in his late 30s and we still say things like, oh, you need to save for your future. That's something you say to a 15-year-old kid, maybe to a 25-year-old kid, right? But then
Mhm.
when you have a society that you're almost 40 years old and they're telling you, no, no, you have your future, you need to save for, it shows you a lot about the values and the fears of this society.
And yes, absolutely. So interestingly, that your parents exactly wanted to save you from experiencing the hardships that you know, they went through, and that was the case in my family as well. But it was interesting that you specifically chose to witness the collapse, right? We are documenting the collapse here, and you chose to stay there to see what are the lessons that could be learned from a such a, and it's a hard lesson, and it's probably been hard on you. And I don't give advices, but at any point you feel that you should be leaving, I think you should be
Oh yeah,
leaving.
I definitely.
However, you are providing us a window into the collapse, and I think that's just invaluable. So for the viewers, I think you can look through his camera into a world that is collapsing, and you can see what would be happening. And we, as you mentioned previously, that there are no books about this, or there are some books about, the German collapse before the Second World War or something like that, but they are so far away. And in history, the
It doesn't
technology and
make a
the
lot of
knowledge was
sense,
different.
exactly.
You cannot connect with that. But there,
And
hyperinflation is happening all the time,
there
people,
is no
every day.
learnings. So
Yes,
yeah, the literature that exists is probably mostly a documentation type literature rather than learnings, because it's not a, until recently, it's not a hot topic. Like, it's not
yeah,
something
yeah.
that you would create a university course on, like hyperinflation 101. I mean, I could totally see business schools doing at least
It
two
should
classes
be
on
there.
hyperinflation.
It's natural, or
Um,
not natural, but it's
so it was
reoccurring.
never something that people would put effort on, like tips for businesses during hyperinflation. I
And
could
there's a
not even
reason
find
for
a
that,
place.
to, let's be honest, but yes.
So yeah, it is something that is still, and it's something where people who are passing through hyperinflation, uh, usually, so it's also partly psychological the way it works. So people who are passing through hyperinflation are generally not the people who will be documenting it, because they don't have that capacity. Like universities don't have money to put research into that. Like experts are leaving the country because they want to make money somewhere else. So the local resources become very scarce. Um, Not many people at this very moment are worrying about how we can publish research paper about this, right? People are worrying about how to make things work. Restaurants are worrying about how to price their food. No one is worrying about like, oh, I'm going to write a document and a book for the future. So that's why you need people, whether it's someone like me who enjoys taking that back seat, or someone like you who is outside and who knows how to look inside and sort of extract information. So you're not in the middle of it. You are objective. You can look at things. You have the mental, emotional, financial capability to put some time into this topic. And yeah, hopefully this would be helpful to future.
I'm very sure of that.
Hopefully it
I'm
doesn't
very sure of
happen.
that.
I mean, that's very dark for me to wish that this is helpful to. Hopefully no one would need this sort of help. But
I know. But unfortunately, if we don't share, right? If we don't share, then it's more likely, because by preparing, by knowing that these things happen, how they unfold, who are the people kind of generating these situations. Unless the general
yeah,
public knows about it, then they are poised to repeat it again and again. That means it's a lesson not learned, right?
I
And
mean,
we're here
ironically,
and
this
you're
could have
here
both.
to teach that lesson, at least through your eyes, so everyone else doesn't have to experience it. So it's very
And
important, the job that you're doing.
ironically, this all could have been avoided. Imagine, like, collapse of a whole country could have been avoided if for the last 10 years there was awareness on not giving banks all your money. As simple as that,
Exactly.
just teach people how to diversify their investments, not to put all their money in the bank. The only reason this happened is because like 90% of the wealth of Lebanon is in the banks of Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
And the banks of Lebanon are owned by the people who run Lebanon. So if that was not the case, the problem wouldn't have been as bad. We would have still had the corruption, but then the variables would have been different, right?
The
As simply
suffering
as
might not be
educating
there.
people.
Yes.
As simply as educating people. Like, look, if you're putting all your bread, all your apples in one basket, if that basket crashes, your whole economy crashes.
And it could
So
be
you create
anything, right?
awareness across society, and it might be something that's avoidable or at least minimized.
And
Um,
alertness as well, to being alert if there's corruption in the government, to be alert, not let it happen just because you're fine enough here in your little corner, because everybody needs to pay attention of what's happening, because if not, you're gonna they will take care of the situation in a way that you will be left out, you know. And it's, you have to know who's the captain of the ship. You can't just go on a ship and, well, this is a nice looking ship and, you know, let's just go on a cruise. Countries are like that, you know. You have to always pay attention. Why are we taking this course? You know, have those maps. You're not the captain. Why do you have a map? Well, you should have a map. You should understand politics. You should understand economics, maybe just, you know, to a certain degree to make your own decisions, because only you can make decisions for yourself, and you will be held accountable by history, right? So I
And
think
really use logic. I mean, one thing, use logic, because conspiracy theories start arising from everywhere in those, in those situations. Like, oh, it's the Americans. They don't want us to survive. Like, oh, this is, but everyone wants an easy answer. Everyone wants an easy way to put the blame on someone. And it's really disappointing when I discover that many people simply do not use logic. Like, and some people reject logic when you
it's
when you
easier.
when you
Yes.
when you present them with logic. Many people on my TikTok, they ask me like, "Are you an economic expert?" I say, "No, I'm just a human who uses his logic." And I always give examples of things using just logical concepts, like just logic. If the dollar value is dropping, why would the exchange place eagerly buy it from you?
Right,
Like,
right.
like logic. That's no economy. There's no politics. If someone is eagerly taking something from you, and that someone is an expert, he's
Questioning
in the
things, right?
business of making money of currencies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why would he take it from you if it's dropping? And people, you always get those people who will tell me like, "Oh, you're being silly, you're stupid, you don't understand." But I know
Yeah.
what I'm saying, and I'm confident.
Unfortunately, it's a problem of faith, or putting faith in the wrong place, or you know, trusting, or being too trusting, or not being trusting at all in certain places. So it's a human emotion that we kind of reflect or project on other things. You know, you are actually there. You're asking questions. You're, you know, putting out the numbers. This is what it cost. This is how it was yesterday. This is what it was, you know, 2 years ago. But somehow, if you don't have a degree in something, then instead of believing in logic and proof and you know, examples that you give, they turn to someone who actually just experienced these through books or something like that. You know, they put the trust in the paper that yes, he's accredited in something. So that's the fundamental problem, that we tend to over trust government, or we tend to not trust government at all, instead of not even caring about trust, but doing your own research, asking people who have absolutely no reason to you know, to change the truth, because
Exactly.
they won't profit from it one way or another,
Because
right?
after all,
Those are the people that you
the
can
government,
gather your information from.
whatever piece of information the government gives you in situations like these, it is a carefully engineered piece of information. Never take it for granted. Never tell like, oh, yeah, they said the dollar is going to get better next week. Do you really trust just because they said that? There's a reason. There's always a reason. They're trying to save their asses. They're not worried about our issues. They're trying to save um, their riches. They're trying to look like the good one, and just look at things from the outside. Use your logic. And I always tell people, don't even take my opinion.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Just at least make your own opinion, not believe in something just because someone said it to you. Like you go, and confirmation bias is very easy. It's people who believe that it's going to get better will only listen to people or to newspapers who show you that it's going to get better. And like, look, they said it's going to get better. And it's confirmation bias, and they become even more stupid because their wrong idea is being reinforced and they're
Amplified.
just
Yes.
rejecting objectivity. A lot of people ask me on TikTok, so Ali, do you know, is the dollar going up or going down? I tell them, no one knows. And if anyone tells you that anyone knows, they're just bullshitting you. Like no one knows, because a phone call can tomorrow change things. Politics are at hand. But then I tell them, look, the logic says, as long as our economy is not fixed, as long as the smuggled money is not found, there is no reason for the lira to get better, period. I mean, that's logic. That's no numbers, no accounting, no finance, it's just logic. And some people still reject logic as simple as that. And
Yes. Unfortunately, people
thankfully,
are
history
looking.
always proves my logic right, because the only thing that breaks logic are like miracles. Like suddenly the France and
They
USA decide
happen, you know.
that we want to solve Lebanon. Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of how politics work, but then logic is, in most of the cases, that's what rules.
Yes, absolutely. So I think we unpacked a lot here, you know, from emotions to going through hyperinflation to understanding and dissecting, and you yourself taking a look at things and understanding things and putting it together. I think that will help you through these situations to know exactly what's happening, so you're not just, you know, suffering the consequences. And Ali, thank you very much for this interview. Is there anything else you would like to say to the viewers?
I'd like to say a lot, but you've said enough. And I would really encourage anyone who's curious about any specific thing to like find a way to reach to me. Maybe if you get enough specific new questions, we can do a Q&A video.
That would be amazing.
And
Yes.
I really encourage you to ask very specific things, because I'm curious about those things. Like one idea I had is to actually go to Venezuela and do some sort of like a time travel, like where Lebanon could get, because we still do not have the hyperinflation the way Zimbabwe or Venezuela have it, but we could get there, right? That's
Right.
another thing that you tell people, that there's nothing that prevents us from getting to where they got. And they start making excuses. Oh, Lebanon is different. Oh, Lebanon is, yeah. Please feel free to
Absolutely.
ask any questions that you have about how things are, how it affects our lives, and I'll be happy to answer.
So everyone, make sure you post questions, and we'll try to, you know, if as long as there are no more blackouts, or at least we can find a spot to interview Ali again
Yeah.
between blackouts, then we'll try to put some of those questions. And
You can
Ali,
ask questions like, how do you pay for Netflix? There's a lot of
specific
details
questions,
that
right? That's amazing. Thank you very much for being our window into the collapsing state of Lebanon. And, you know, I'm looking forward to talking to you again. Thank you
thank you.
very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Make sure to like the video, share the video with your friends and family so they get to know about all of this valuable information. Go to Ali's channel. I will have a link to his YouTube channel in the description, and check out his channel and follow him. Thank you very much, Ali.